Okay, so we're going to talk about a book that I am not really sure how I feel about yet. Because it traumatized me. I think that's the best way to word this. This book traumatized me. I read it about 2 weeks ago and I have not recovered. I have not yet recovered. So go in knowing that. It's going to be a wild ride, okay? This is Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi. And, you know what I mean? I don't think there's a better way to say that, okay? You feel me? The story follows a wide cast of characters who are all approaching the same situation from different perspectives. But it's important to note that that situation was initiated by the breakup of two individuals, Aima and Kalu. And it's worth noting that a part of the reason they're breaking up is because Aima is starting to awaken spiritually, specifically in relation to Christianity, in a way that is very restrictive, and I don't want to use the word culty, but you know what I mean. And Kalu he's not for it. He's not with it, you know what I mean? Aima goes in search of some sense of identity and community and begins to ask questions about her faith and her sexual identity, whereas Kalu goes to what's familiar to him, which in this instance is a sex party hosted by one of his longtime friends. Only this time, instead of a little bit of fun, he ends up in a situation that could change the entire course of his life. A situation that not only involves Aima, but also his long-term friend, as well as two unsuspecting sex workers. And I think it's important to note that this story unravels very, very quickly. Like, it goes from 0 to 100 almost from the start. And to be completely frank, by the end of the book, I had to stop and put it down and ask myself, what was this story even trying to tell me? Because I was so overwhelmed with the amount of traumatizing content. This book is a lot. And I'm not actually going to spoil the content of the story, but I am going to give you very strong trigger warnings and tell you that you should not read this story if you are triggered by sexual assault, especially as it relates to minors. With that said, here's my takeaway with the story. I spent the entire story struggling with how much trauma I was being exposed to. Asking myself, why did Akwaeke put all of this in there? Why did they force me to see this? Why did they describe these things in such graphic detail? Why would they do this? And honestly, I didn't really have an answer to that until several hours after I was done reading the book, as I was sitting there thinking about the book, talking about it with other people who have read it. And that's when I realized that is the point. For a lot of us, we are constantly being exposed to horrific realities, and we never manage to see them. We never look. We turn away, pretend it isn't happening, and refuse to get involved. Because we tell ourselves we have no power to help. We have no power to do anything. We can't affect change. And maybe we're right. Maybe we don't have that power. Maybe we can't do anything. But is that an excuse to look away? That is the thing that I left this book challenged by. Do I have an excuse to look away? Because for the people in this story, one person's choice to not look away turned into all of them being forced to address a situation that endangered everyone. And at the end of the day, they were right. None of them had the power to do anything. But they had no choice because it got too close. But the kicker is, it was always close. And while it wasn't really explored explicitly in the story, that is an incredibly important part of the story. The problem that they were all forced to address all started with a problem that was always in front of every single one of them. But it's important to note that each of them had a different reason for creating distance between themselves and their responsibility to do something. For some of them, it was an I don't know. I don't look. If I don't see it, it's not my problem. Others were able to justify being complicit because the real problem was the people at the top. Whereas others were able to approach the situation from having survived the same exact problem. For different reasons, everyone was able to look at this situation and choose whether or not they would look away. And that, for me, is something worth wrestling with. Why do I look away? Why do I choose not to see the things that people are experiencing around me? Why do I choose not to get involved, to help where I can? What privilege or fear or suffering is keeping me from doing something? And is my choice to look away actually me being complicit? The truth is, no matter where I stand or what identity I live in, there is always some form of suffering happening right in front of me, whether I am being forced to notice it or not. And the book addressed so much more. It talked about religious corruption, the power of money both to liberate and oppress, and the importance of people who see your humanity. Not just see your trauma, not just see your need, but you as a person. Ultimately, I highly recommend. But please hear me when I say this book is not an easy read. There will be parts of it that are hard for you to read, perhaps that you won't even be able to. There's a lot of trauma right there on the page spelled out for you with graphic detail, and it's hard to stomach. But so is the experiences that we are looking away from in the real world. And I think, if anything, that is something worth thinking about.